Welcome back, travelers, to Legendary Lore, where today we're going to be talking about the Obscura. Now, what's really unfortunate about this one is I was really hoping that Joe would be able to be here for this one, but unfortunately, he is currently trying out some new concrete shoes and taking a swim. So, right now, we're going to go ahead and start talking about Kessa and Kamiz, both of which are legendary creatures in this set. Kessa being a cephalid and Kamiz also being a cephalid. And they both work with the Obscura. So Kamiz is the one that has a lot more experience than the other. And so we basically are all taking place from Kamiz's perspective. The two of them are going to a person's fortune teller shop named Tivit. Tivit is a sphinx. They don't actually have their own card, but you get a basic idea of who they are. And so Tivit is there, sees Kamiz, who's considered to be Rafine's right hand cephalid, and of course Rafine is the leader of the Obscura, a giant demon sphinx, which is obviously super cool. So all that's happening, they're talking, and Tivit's there supposed to give information. Kamiz is there, very serious. Kessa's bantering because Kessa's lower level, she doesn't have as much, I guess, weighing her down. But what we do know is that essentially there is they're investigators. They're basically detectives, which is part of what makes this story so cool, because we get little hints of things throughout the story that kind of leads up to everything else. And while that's happening, they're just talking, and Tivit just gets hit with this vision. And Tivit starts screaming. And while that's happening, you have all these floating crystals that are exploding midair, and there's blue smoke everywhere, and basically it's a vision. And all they hear is them, the Tivit just starts yelling, "The kitten hiding the cream, Corvidae flitting and pecking, gold in the water hiding the cream, the kitten," over and over and over again. And so we don't really know what that means. All of it makes sense as it unveils. The kitten hiding the cream. Corvidae, of course, being a reference to birds. Corvidae are things such as the raven or the crows or magpies. Those are all the different things that you could see as Corvidae. Flitting and pecking, gold in the water. I don't really know what that means. Hiding the cream, the kitten. And so all that happens. It's really weird. They recorded it. They sent it straight to Rafine, so he had a general idea of what was going on. Even though, of course, Rafine is the person that receives every vision, so he should know. He should receive it as well, because the visions are usually sent by something happening. And so Kessa and Kamiz, they make sure that Tivit's okay, and they start going. And so what's weird is that one of the other things that gets mentioned are halos. Halos, kitten hiding the cream, gold in the water, gold, Corvidae, halos everywhere. And so everyone is receiving the exact same vision. And so Kessa thinks that it's come from the angels, and the angels are the ones that are trying to communicate, hey, this is happening. But at the same time, Kamiz is like, no, because the angels are all extinct. Because angels have been on the plane for a very long time, for basically as long as they can remember. So they're on the run. They're trying to figure out what's happening. There's got to be something. And so they wind up going to meet with Rafine. And they get over the very top, and it's basically this giant sanctum. There's glass walls, and the Sphinx demon is looking over the entire city. And there's like these little images floating up and all over the place. And the Sphinx is just pacing. And just walking through all these different visions and whispers and such. And it's just this old, mysterious, powerful creature. And Kamiz just like drops to a knee, and Rafine turns to her and he's like, report. Every single one of these guys that shows up, you have a demon sphinx, you have a demon dragon, you have a demon bird. They're all very imposing, these just massive bosses, and they show up, you're like, I don't want to die. I'm not gonna get killed. Even the demon cat's still pretty intimidating. You don't want him knocking over anything off of a shelf. So basically all that happens, and Rafine is like, hey, don't tell me what you saw. I already know what you saw. Kittens splashing in milk, gold in the water, halos, I've seen it. I'm not interested in the details. I want to know who sent the vision. And so basically they're saying it must have been an attack. Somebody specifically attacked the visionaries of New Capenna. And so he assigns Kamiz specifically to find out what happened. And what follows is, first of all, I would highly suggest that you guys go and read this, because it's super important that you see everything as it comes and everything as it goes. So I would actually stop listening to this and go read that if you haven't, because there's going to be little hints throughout. And so as they're going, they're like, okay, they're trying to like decipher it essentially. And they're like, okay, so we know the kitten's hiding the milk. That's what it's talking about. And they said that everyone got the same vision, and there's got to be something going on here. And it says, I'm researching the vision's images. She says, I'm researching the vision's images. And she talks about the kittens hiding the cream. They know it could have something to do with the fact there's a cat demon. Maybe it's because he's hiding something. Gold in the water. They're not entirely sure. Maybe it has to do with the fact that there's like the halo is like shimmering. Corvidae, they know there could be crows, could be magpies, jackdaws, ravens. So they know it could be anything, right? And Kamiz is like, look, we're not investigating the vision's contents. We're looking for who sent them. And she tosses out all that stuff and says they need to find who sent it. And Kesa says that no, it was probably the angels. It was definitely the angels because of the halos. The halos are the main hint, she says, because that you know for sure. And Kamiz basically throws it out saying, no, it can't be. They don't exist. Stop saying dumb things. Let's actually think. And that kind of keeps going until they go, okay, we know that there's a person, a Leonin woman, an orange tabby fur with pale yellow eyes. She's wearing a trench coat, a smart fedora, and a suspicious expression. Her name, Lacey Lanine, the reporter. So we got a newsie, essentially. And this cat thinks that she's going to be able to find all the secrets she's looking for and get the big scoop that she wants. And the problem is that not everyone likes it when somebody starts snooping around in their business. And so as it goes through, we find out that she found this warehouse where they were doing experiments with Halo. They have a guy named Oscar who's basically been helping them. And Oscar and Kesa, they're very friendly with each other. It's pretty great how nice they are. And like, we have all these detective things happening. You don't really see any of the stuff you were seeing in the other story with the brokers, where they're like these antagonists. It's all protagonist stuff that they're going through, and it feels a lot like a detective story, which I loved. And I wish that we could have gotten more of that detective aspect in the other stories, especially the main story. I feel like this would have been a really great way to get people's attention, because it's just a very different narrative style. You're going from place to place trying to figure these things out. But basically they describe how Lacey Lanine doesn't really do anything as far as the actual work she's given. She just does a bunch of fluff pieces. And if anything, the most interesting thing about her is that she's dating one of the brokers. So they're like, look, she probably didn't do anything. She was probably just out on a date. I don't know where she was, all this other stuff. And so it's funny because right here we see that one of her articles is about Ginny Myra and Kit Canto, which are two of the legendaries from the Cabaretti. So we even get like little bits like, okay, this person could be involved, this person could be involved, this person could be involved. But it's all like, there's just a lot of muddying the waters, trying to figure out what it is exactly that's happening. And so as they're going through that, they go, well, maybe the mention of a magpie could be Lagrella. Maybe she's the one who got Lacey to go investigate this thing. She basically tipped her off. Lacey went over here, she got in trouble, and then something happened, and they don't quite know what it could be. And so they're going through the warehouse rubble, and you have echo readers, who are basically people that are capable of seeing what's going on in an area in the past. They can see the echoes of what occurred. And they're saying, yeah, there was a 4-person team. They were working on this thing. They were under a spell. They're experimenting on the Halo. Halo exploded, and that's most likely what sent out that big vision to everyone. And they're like, okay, that makes things a lot like, it gives us an idea. This was a Halo-induced vision. And as they're going along, they're like basically talking to everyone else who received the vision to try and get more information. And they're seeing that there's just like these because obviously we still have Kesa, who thinks that this has to do with the angels, and she's like, angel statue, angel picture, angel. The halos, there's halos everywhere. And Kamiz is like, come on, focus. It's not, doesn't matter what's in there. And Kesa really is getting she's just kind of distracted by all of this. And then Oscar, he reports they found Lacey. She was in a dumpster, in a stupor. Her entire mind had been wiped completely. And they think, oh, why is that? And they think, oh, well, the halo disintegrated those 4 other guys, and it seems to have erased her mind as well. And so even then, they look at the notes, and the notes have been scrubbed. Kesa's notes. Kesa sees the notes that Lacey had been taking were scrubbed. And Kamiz is just like, that's just how it goes. Lacey might be a victim of her own plot. The halo-infused spell put images into Seer's minds and wiped her memory. She survived the implosion, but the magic hit her brain at point-blank range. And it made sense because the dumpster happened to be very close to where the actual thing had all taken place. And as they're going through all of these things, suddenly they hear glass shattering, metal crashing against wood, and they think it's Tivet's shop, the things from earlier. And so Kamiz, she shoves the blank scraps into her pocket, and she starts sprinting. Case is out right behind her. She's going just as fast, and they get through all these panicked pedestrians, and there's a flame in Tivet's shop, and everything's going horrendously, and everyone is basically like gawking at everything that's going on. And they push through, and Kesa runs into the shop and is able to try and like get Tivet out of there. Tivet's like really like all like disoriented, and Kamiz reaches in and tries to pull them out of the wreckage before it explodes, and everything collapses in on itself. And she's able to pull out Tivet, but not Kesa, and the entire building comes down on her, and like literally just flattened. And she doesn't know what to do. She's freaking out because obviously. And so she starts like going through the rubble, just going through everything, trying to find out what happened. Where is Kesa? And then basically there's a little hand a thin hand emerges from a gap between 2 buildings that have been like crushed. And it's because she's a cephalid. Cephalid are essentially octopus people, and octopuses, octopodes, octopi, they don't have bones. So she basically, it's instead of it being this like big sacrifice or this terrible tragedy, it's more of a gag that, oh yeah, cephalids don't have bones. Why were they crushed? And why was Kamiz so worried if Kamiz is also a cephalid and would know this? And so after all of that and everything that's been going on, they decide, Kamiz is like, okay, look, you keep talking about all the stained glass windows. You keep talking about these things that are happening. You keep getting in trouble. That's it. And she says, have I taught you nothing? You didn't take a moment to ask how or when the halos are crafted, or consider interviewing the glaziers in the Chaldea. This is Kesa talking, by the way, to be specific. Your first thought is folk tales. Your angel obsession makes you sloppy. And so as she's pulling Kesa out of the rubble, Kesa notes that there's actually a stained glass of a halo in Tivet's building, even though she didn't have anything really to do with the halos and the angels and stuff. The fact that it was there is really what tips off Kesa, and Kesa's like, look at this. And she takes out basically all these images from her talisman, and she says, halos, there's halos here, there's halos here, there's everywhere, there's halos. And she says, you didn't, like all of these different parts of it, they show that. And like at this point, Kamiz is just really upset. She says, have I taught you nothing? You didn't take a moment to ask how or when these halos were crafted, or consider interviewing the glaziers in the Chaldea. Your first thought is folk tales. Your angel obsession makes you sloppy. Because these aren't, like, obviously these stained glass windows and these statues, they're not necessarily angel based. It could just be that they were created in the image of the angels sometime in the last 10 to 20 years, and it's completely irrelevant to the story. And Case is upset. She's like, what about you? You don't even follow your own rules. Have you questioned everyone, Kamiz. Your objectivity falls away at certain altitudes. I've been collecting evidence. Are you examining your assumption? Are you questioning Rafine? And it's at that point that Kamiz realizes you're off the case. There's no way that I can let you be on here. You give me your sigils, give me your talismans, give me everything, because you're questioning our leader now. You can't be doing that. You'll die. You're too deep into it. You care too much about it. You're too invested in the angel plot. So yeah, you're done. You're off the case. And so it's basically the same deal as every other detective story where they're like, no, you've gone too far. You're off the case. And so Case is basically just pushed out of the story at this point, and it's all Kamiz. And Kamiz goes and she's like sitting in the elevator waiting to go see Rafine, and she watches as blackbirds are flying past the thing, and she's gets all the way to the giant demon bird. And she's looking at all the walls and she's seeing all the Obscura like designs and stuff like that. And she says, I found the vision catalyst. Spellcasters using Halo. It killed them and destroyed a building. Now it wiped the reporter's mind and all these other things happened, right? She goes, the Halo was stolen from the Cabaretti. So the kid didn't hide in the milk. And he's like, what about the spellcasters? She goes, they were dead, they were evaporated. And Lacey Lanine, her mind was wiped. And so everything goes good. And she says, I made a mistake, boss. I warded the Cloud Spire, which is where they are, but the spell got through somehow. And all that happened. And while this is happening, she also sent one of the like subordinates in Avon to go check all the wards to make sure everything was still up, to protect, see if, like where the hole was essentially. And the guy says, I looped the spire 3 times and I compared it to prior photograms. Everything's the same. Looking at your second question now. Second question hasn't been revealed yet. And she goes, I came here to tell you I made a mistake. And I did. And he goes, well, you're forgiven. Just reestablish the wars, check them again. That'll be all. And she goes, no, my mistake was assuming every seer saw the same vision. But they didn't. Everyone saw a kitten hiding a bowl of cream. You said it was kitten splashing in milk. Hiding, splashing, same thing. She goes, you didn't see the same vision because you didn't see any vision at all. And it's at this point that Rafine's like, hold up, you're questioning me. And Kamiz points out there aren't any halos in the building. And after the guy like basically was reporting that there's no halo, not a single halo in the entirety of the Cloud Spire. And she says that's why he's scared, because for the first time someone sent a vision and he didn't send it to him. And then she gets note that Lacey Lanine was nowhere near the implosion site. The implosion did not erase her memory. The Obscura did not erase her memory. Someone else did. And everything kind of starts coming together. And she says, I'm going to get justice for an innocent reporter. Lacey Lanine wasn't at the building when it imploded, and the spell didn't wipe her memory. And she says, where was she? Out with her lady friend. Now, prior to this, we did have a moment where there were brokers involved, and we know that her lady friend, Lagrella, is known as the Magpie. So, Corvidae, something's connecting. And they go here, and we basically cut to this next part. It's called Mergino Fountain. It's this calm oasis, heart of a chaotic city. And Lagrella's just kind of there, looking at the architecture and just kind of enjoying the moment, the peace. And she says, congratulations, Spy Master, you found me. And so she's basically described in the vision as Lagrella the Magpie, Corvidae, flitting and pecking. And she basically says, a window gets scratched and there's a broker signing people up for protection. An entire building implodes in the heart of the Mezio and not a single broker comes sniffing. You might as well have signed your name. Once I found your girlfriend, it was basically a confession. Basically, at this point, she's figured out that the brokers are definitely involved in this, because as soon as Tivitt's place exploded with that whole fireball thing and everything was getting crushed and there were people watching, there were brokers swarming the place trying to sign people up for contracts of protection, saying, hey, if you do this for us, we'll protect you, we'll keep you safe. And all this stuff kept popping up during that time. But what about when the warehouse imploded? The entire thing was destroyed. It was a giant building. People were disintegrated and there were no brokers anywhere. And that's why she says here that you might as well have signed your name on it. And then when she found her girlfriend, it was basically a confession. And Ligrella's like, no, I could have robbed the cabaret myself, and I would have, but the cabaret don't let anyone in the kitchen except a harmless reporter for society pages. So that whole deal about making those little fluff pieces for Kit Canto and Ginny, those were the moments where Lacey was able to get into the cabaret and steal Halo for Ligrella to do those experiments. All this is happening, and the reason Ligrella is telling her is because she is an extremely powerful broker, to the point where she can force people to do their own, basically just sign things they don't want to do. And so here we see this as, like, as she looks around, Kamiz notices that the tank they're in is decorated with contract breakers, and they're dipped in gold and silver. And that's where we have gold in the water. The idea that she dips people in gold, turns them into statues, and then keeps them, essentially. It'll basically being a Gorgon with extra steps. And there's all this stuff happening, and she's like forcing Kamiz to sign, and everything's really freaky. And then we have the pen that she's going to have to write with go through the paper. And Ligrella's really confused. And then she realizes that everything that's happening is an illusion, and they got all the confession they needed and everything, and they're able to bind Ligrella. And as the illusion falls away, I'll just read it. It says right here, she says, either you can wipe your own mind with your signature, because she basically flipped it on her and now Ligrella's about to sign it. Either you wipe your own mind, or you nullify Lacey's contract. And by nullifying Lacey's contract, she'd basically be able to get justice for her and help her out. And Ligrella's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Because if I do that, then I basically would be messing up my own thing, right? And she goes, well, it's maybe people will agree to when they're desperate. And Ligrella's like, fine, I'll do it. Because otherwise she's going to lose her entire mind. And she basically just leaves her there with the tangled up in her own magic, and says, do it yourself, you'll figure it out. And so Kamiz gets a message saying that Lacey's woken up and her memory's been restored. And all of this kind of comes together with Kesa and Kamiz working together. Kesa, of course, having shown up during this whole illusion deal, since that's one of her strengths, and revealing that she was working with Kamiz on this particular mission, the whole deal with tricking Ligrella. It's all meant to be like a surprise deal of everything unfolding. It's like every other detective story where like, you thought of this, but did you think of this? But I had this, and did you think of that? And all that stuff. But our story ends with Kamiz and Kesa basically working together again. And they believe that the angels may someday return. And they look out at all the little birds flying around. They say, I'm appreciating the way everything looks right now. So it's a very peaceful, very nice way for it to end. The last one ended kind of with this impending war, and this one ends with the thought that the angels could someday return and restore peace and order. With that, this long story comes to a close. And I mean, again, I would suggest reading the story yourself. It's so good. It's such a fun romp. I'm going to end it now. Joe, end the story, please.